Hi everyone, good evening. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, all of you. So you people see that assignment which is shared on joints.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so someone I think did it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I will check it. And what we have discussed yesterday.
Ma'am, find and set function, date and time functions.
Okay, we discussed about uh, one string function and about date functions, right? Okay, so
Yes.
today I'm gonna tell about triggers. So anybody know about triggers?
No.
Okay, so or what is trigger? Trigger. I think you heard this name somewhere. Trigger. You didn't?
Yes, ma'am. In gun, there was a trigger.
Okay, so where we hear that word mostly when we are talking about gun, so trigger,
Yes, ma'am.
right?
Yes.
Okay. So what do we say at that time? If you pull that trigger, what will happen?
Shot will be fired.
Yeah, it's automatically will release the bullet, right? So trigger is like something, it's like to activate something. So we are going to discuss about this MySQL trigger today. So why we use trigger in SQL concept? So we have a table here and it contains data. So when data is trying to insert or update or delete, so at the time we need to make some changes, or we need to know some audit like what it's happening and how is it happening and what actually it's updating. So like that we need to know all these things. So in these cases, triggers are needed. So what it's trying to say here, a trigger in MySQL is a set of SQL statements that reside in a system catalog. So trigger is nothing but set of SQL statements. That means a trigger contains many statements inside it. So we can create a trigger and we can store it in a system. So when it is needed, it is automatically do the process without a manual doing and like that. So it is a special type of store procedure that is invoked automatically in response to an event. So in response to an event, that means what are the events that will happen on a table? You people tell me. So in a table, we can make some changes, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Update, insert, and all.
So we can do CRUD operations on the table like that. So whenever those kind of things will happen, then trigger will automatically invoke. So what it will do? So a trigger is called a special store procedure because it cannot be called directly like a store procedure. The main difference between the trigger and procedure. So you people don't know about procedure and we don't need that procedure to it, because in the companies they won't ask you about the procedure and all. So you need first about how to write the basic SQL statements using joins and all. So when you are going to attend an interview, they mostly ask about joins, unions, and string functions, state functions, mostly based on that. So you people know how to write on that, like in operator between. So you people already know all these concepts, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So you people have some idea. No response.
About what, ma'am?
Like about what means joints, unions, set operator
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
between, like.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. So we are going to discuss about triggers. So triggers are of two types according to the SQL standard. One is row level trigger and another one is statement level triggers. So what is row level and statement level trigger? So which is activated for each row by triggering statements such as insert, update or delete. So whenever we are doing a changes like in a table, insert or update or delete. So when we are doing these type of things, then it will automatically invoke row level trigger. So example, if a table has inserted or updated or deleted multiple rows, the row trigger is fired automatically for each row affected. So whatever the rows are affected when we are doing these type of operations, then the trigger will automatically invoke. And statement level trigger, it is a trigger which is fired once for each event that occurs on a table regardless of how many rows are inserted, updated or deleted. But row level and statement level, row level is what, it's like whenever the data, we are doing manipulations with the data, then it will automatically insert automatically invoke. So it's like row level. And statement level is different. It's like it's related to table, not with the rows. So when we are doing the statement level trigger, the data, whatever we've written, like it's like how many operations it will do. At the same time, many insertions will happen and many updations or many deletes. So all these things will happen at once. Okay. So why we need use triggers in MySQL? So triggers help us to enforce business rules to validate data even before they are inserted or updated. So when we are trying to insert some data, like if you want to insert some data, so it will first check whether it is validated data or not. So when we are doing insertion or updated, first it will check the data, or we want some information from the table, so we can use the triggers. And it's like an audit. It's like so the data have access to many people. When you are talking about corporate company, so that the database has access to many people. So some people will make changes and some people do something based on the requirement. So we can audit whatever who is doing what. Like if someone is inserting some data, so we will get to know, okay, this person is inserted something in that table, and someone is updated, so we'll get to know whoever is doing what. Okay. So it's like audit trails and provide an alternate way to check the integrity of data. And it's an alternative way to run the schedule task, because every time we need not to activate the trigger, it will automatically generate, or it will automatically invoke when we are doing some manipulations and all. And if people study all these things, so what are the types of triggers in MySQL? So types of triggers means there are 6 type of triggers. One is what? Before insert, after insert, before update, after update, before delete, after delete. So these 6, I think these are very easy. Insert, update, delete, and before, after, like that. So it is activated before the insertion of data into the table. So it is activated before the insertion of data into the table. So when you are going to insert something into the table, then it will be activated. So if you want to insert some data into the table, it will be activated and it will check whether that data is correct or not, like that. So after insert, it is activated after the insertion of data into the table. So you can do some, you can write a SQL query like, after insert, I want these details to fetch. So like that you can write. So before update, after update, before delete, after delete. So when we use a statement that does not use insert, update or delete query to change the data in a table, the triggers associated with the trigger will not be invoked. So then we've written some statements like insert, update or delete. So if you didn't write these kind of queries, then the trigger will not be invoked. So it will not start. If you write based on this insert, update, delete, then only it will invoke and do changes whatever it needs. So naming convention. Okay, you will get to understand. So how to create a trigger first. So here is the syntax. What is this? Create trigger. And after create trigger, we have to give here trigger name. So you can give any name, like depends upon the task. So if you wanted to know the audit, like who is doing what, so you can create trigger and you can give it here audit, table audit, like that. So when you wanted to know that audit, so before doing something you wanted to know, or after doing something, like after insert, if someone is inserted some data into that table, then you will get to know some information, you want some information, there you can need to mention after insert. Okay, or else you wanted to know the information, that means if someone is going to update some data into the table, okay, then you wanted to know the before data whatever it is there, so you wanted to fetch the data, so you have to pick it here before update or before insert, like that, on which table you are doing operation, on which table. So if you have taken employees, then you can keep the employees table here on employees for each row. So for each row means when we are doing the operations on a table, so for each row, so whenever the data is inserted, updated, deleted for any row, it will take action on that. So begin, so we'll write a query here and end. So we can understand the availability of old and new modifiers with the below table. So trigger event, insert, update, delete, and old and new. So you will get to understand this later when we come into the code. So MySQL show triggers. So to know how many triggers are there in a particular database, you can use this show triggers. And to drop a particular trigger, you can drop trigger and database name and also trigger name. So here is an example after delete trigger. So what it's happening here? And after delete trigger means that MySQL will fire this trigger after the delete operation is executed. After the delete operation is executed. So if we create a trigger on what after delete, so when we are doing some operations on a table, okay, so when we are done some operations on the table, after it is executed, then trigger will automatically invoke. So the syntax to create an after delete trigger in MySQL is, so you already seen this syntax, right? Okay, so here is an example to understand what is trigger and what it will do. So we have a table called as what?
Contacts.
Okay, so we have a table called contacts. So we are creating a trigger on contacts table. So we will create triggers on table names. Okay, so we have a table called contacts and we are creating a trigger on contacts table. So create trigger, and here is a name that is called trigger name contacts after delete. Okay, so when this operation will help, this operation needs to perform after deleting something. So after deleting something, we wanted to know, or we want some information from this. So after delete on contacts means table name for each row. So we already seen the syntax here, create trigger, and we have to give here trigger name after delete or after insert or after update. So we have to give here based on the need. Okay, on table name. So here we have contacts table, we already seen, so we can mention here contacts for each row. So for every row, whatever the operations are happened, then based on that it will automatically invoke. So we have a table and we have seen this syntax. So after begin, there is a declaration. What is that? Declare and v-user. V-user means nothing but that's a variable name. Like when we are creating a table, we will declare some variables, right? Variables and the data type. Understood?
Yes, ma'am.
You are the only person listening or anybody else?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Sorry,
ma'am.
can I not get it? Please repeat.
Which one?
Trigger table.
Trigger.
Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. So you already seen this create trigger syntax, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So you have to follow this trigger syntax, like create trigger, and we have to give it here trigger name. So you can give any name. Okay.
Okay,
So
ma'am.
when you need to perform the operation, so when the data is going to insert, you wanted to perform this trigger, or after the data is deleted, or before the data is going to delete. So when you need to perform the operation, trigger operation, so you have to mention here. So you already seen this, there are 6 type of triggers: before insert the data into the table, or after insert the data into the table, or before update something in the table, or after updation happen. So before delete or after delete. So you have to mention based on your requirement. So here it is mentioned after update it needs something. So what is that? On which table? Here we have seen that they have given one table, that is contacts table. So after insert on contacts for each row begin. So here it is nothing but a variable declare variable, and you already know that this is data type, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, variable name can be anything. Okay, so variable name is nothing but v user, it is declared. So find username of person performing the insert into table. So find username of person. So select user means what? User is nothing but which user is going to perform the operations on the table. Okay, so if I come here, select user. User is nothing but a function, like what we did yesterday, string functions and the date functions. So it is one of the function. Select user. So what it will return? It's like at first, when we are installing that, we have seen that username password, right?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yeah, user is nothing but you see that root and we give some password there. So like that, now we have, I think, only one user. So that's why we got only root at localhost. Okay. So select user means what it will give? Root at localhost. So select user will give root at localhost, and we have already declared one variable here, that is v user. into v-user. That means whatever this select user will get the output and it will save into the v-user. So in the v-user present, what is there?
Variable.
Variable user.
Yeah, v-user is like a variable, but select user will give some output, right? So we have got now root at localhost. So root at localhost will save into the v-user. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so select user will give some output, and into means whatever the data is there, it will save into this thing. That's it. So next, insert record into audit table. So what we have declared here, we need this trigger operation, whatever the data is inserted. That means after insert. So in the insert into contacts audit, contact ID, created date, created by.
Ma'am,
Yes.
can you please execute and show? Like whatever trigger you're saying, no, it's like half only I can understand.
Yeah, I will execute it now.
Okay, like after you execute and then you just read out, then we can at least figure out what you are trying. But right now, a little bit finding it difficult,
Okay.
because this is the first time I'm learning about triggers now. That's why.
So we have table that is select star from employees. Okay. So I wanted to change the email column. Okay. So I wanted to change the email column in this employees table, but I wanted to know that before changing the email, I wanted to know the previous. So if you see here, Stephen King, email is Sking, SKING. So I'm going to change it to something else, or else anyone is going to change to something else. So I wanted to know that previous one also. Okay. So it needs the information. So when someone will automatically do the update, so then we will get to know what is the previous one. So we can revert it, right? So what should I do here? I will create a trigger. So it will save the data, whatever the previous version is there. So you have seen the syntax. What is that? This is the,
Create trigger.
yeah, this is the syntax of the trigger. And one more thing. So I told you that whatever the data I'm going to insert, that is, so here the data is already there. So I wanted to know the previous one before updating something. So before update, I wanted to know the data, what is there here. So for the employee 100, I wanted to change to something like Steven at Gmail. And I wanted to know the before, what is the value. Okay. So before is what? Sking, right? So even if I update something to the new one, I wanted to know the previous one also. What is the previous data is there in that. So I will create a trigger. So, and I wanted to know the previous one. So where it needs to store, I told you that trigger will act as a audit. So whatever the changes are happening in the table, what is the new data is inserted, what is the data is deleted. So we need to create a table. create table, trigger audit. Okay. So I'm giving ID here, ID in primary key, auto increment, and next. Okay, when some of the changes are going to happen, then I wanted to know that that employee ID. So I'm going to change something in this email. So I want the employee ID from this. Employee ID int and their first name. And then email. Okay. So I created, okay, I'll take salary too. So if you see here, I created a table called trigger audit. I'm saving this. So you people know why I created another table?
Because we have to insert that trigger at the time of creation of the table.
Yeah, why I have created this table is whatever the data, whatever the changes are happening in the employees table, those changes will store into this table. Okay. So when it will store, when something is happening like this, when something is happening updations purpose, then it will store in this table. So I will create a trigger. So before creating this trigger, I have created a delimiter. Delimiter is nothing but it's like a start ending point. So delimiter and pipeline I have given. That means it is a starting point. Okay. So why I created this delimiter and the pipeline is in the SQL statements, we have to end this with semicolon. So in the trigger, there are many statements or many lines we will write. So if I give that semicolon statements, so it will not take it as only one statement. It will take it as many statements are there. So that's why I have given delimiter at first. And again, after completing all my statements inside the trigger, then I will close this one. So it will take it as only one statement. Okay. So create trigger and the trigger name. Okay. So after or employee update, I'll give employee update. So when we need changes before updating something, I wanted to know the previous data in that table. So before update on which table we are performing employees
Employees.
for each row. So you have to write based on the syntax what they have given for each row begin. So we have to write it here. So what we have to write it here? When something is happening in that employees table, the data, the previous data should be inserted to this employee update table. So here we have write insert into employee audit, right? What is the table name? Trigger audit. Insert into trigger audit. Employee ID. I need not to mention ID here because in the trigger audit, I have already created ID as auto increment. So that's why I'm taking the remaining column names. So employee ID, first name, and the last name, email, salary. Okay. So I have to,
Ma'am,
yes,
there in place of employees, I think there should be audit.
which one?
No, there create trigger EMP update before update on.
Update on.
Before update on.
Syntax.
It's written before update on employees, but the table name is trigger audit.
Yeah, create trigger employee. We can give any name here for the trigger, right?
No, not here. The third line, before update on employees.
Yeah. So on which table we are creating, for which table you are creating trigger? So if something is happening, if any operation is performed on the employees table, the data which is there before, I want it to be inserted in this trigger audit table. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, first let me execute this, then you will get to know what actually happening, what actually trigger is doing. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So what I mentioned here, old, that means before update, I'm using in this trigger before update. And I wanted to know the old data, whatever is there in that. So old dot employee ID and old dot
First name,
first name,
last name,
old dot last name,
salary,
dot email, old dot
salary.
salary. Column and then n. So I have created a trigger before updating. So before something updations are going on, so before update, I wanted to know the data. I wanted to get the data from that table and I wanted to insert in this trigger audit. Trigger audit already exists. I executed it. Okay. So select start from employees. So I wanted to make changes in the first one, right? 100 Stephen King, and the email I'm going to change. So update employees, set email is equal to Stephen at mail. So we have to give what here? We have to give some condition,
where
otherwise it will execute to every row in the column. So where
yes, ma'am.
employee
ID
ID is equals to 100.
100.
It is executed. And okay, we'll check that trigger audit table also. Select star from trigger audit. So if you see here, when we are doing these kind of updations, so it will automatically fetch the data, whatever the data is there, the previous data. So I will execute this both ones. Select star from employees. Now in the email, the previous is Sking, right? Email. SKING. So if
Yes,
you see
ma'am.
here, the previous one is King. But now we have updated it as Steven at mail. So whatever the previous data is there, it will store it here. So we can see, okay, this is the previous one. Now we change it to Steven at mail. And we can already, we can see here, okay, in the employee ID number 100, the data is changed. So it was updated. So this is the previous one. So we will get to know whenever there are changes happening in the actual table. So if there are something is happening in the actual table and to store the data, like before updation, we wanted to know something, or after updation, we wanted to know something. So it will also store in some table, right? So that's why we are creating another table to store some kind of that kind of data. Okay. So I think you people understood now.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I'm doing some update on salary also. So if I wanted to change the salary to the person like another one, okay. So if you see here to the 104 employee ID proofs, the salary is very less, that is 6,000. So I wanted to change that salary, like set
Salary.
update employees, set salary is equal to 10K, where employee
Price is one.
ID is equals to 104. So it got executed. Now you can see here to the employee ID 104, we have updated the salary 104. The salary we have updated to 10,000. Then what is the previous salary? 6,000, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So we got this information here, like this employee ID 104, Bruce, the previous salary is 6,000, but it got updated. So you have understood now what trigger will automatically generate whatever the previous version is there, whatever the previous data is there, it will update to this table. So we will get to know whatever the changes are happening in this. So when it will insert into this table,
When the value is changed.
yeah, when we are doing some updations. So like that, we can create triggers for different purposes. If you see here after, okay. So now before update, so before going to update, we wanted to know the previous data. So after insert also, we will get to know. So based on that, after insert, I wanted to know which user did that insertion. Okay. And after update, before update, after delete.
Ma'am, for every function we have to create in different tables, like for after update one table, before update one table, or it can be done in a single table.
Yeah, we can create multiple triggers on a same table. There is no problem. So, but based on the requirement, if we wanted to know that information, then only we will create that trigger. Otherwise, no needed, because trigger will take memory and it's take heavy load. Like if your execution process is done in milliseconds, but if you are using this trigger for a big table, like if a table contains 1 lakh to like 1 crore, like that, then if you use trigger also, then it will take much time. Okay, so in some cases trigger is avoided, but in some necessary cases it is needed. So okay, so I'm explaining this to you, right? So after insert trigger, so here is an example for this after trigger. So what it's telling, create trigger and trigger name, contacts after insert, and after insert something. So whenever the data is inserted into the table, so before inserting there is no data, right? If something data is
No.
there, then we will update. If we are inserting some data, means there is no previous data, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So after insert on contacts table for each row begin. So if you see here, he declared one variable, that is B user, and he's getting some data like select user. Select user means I already told you that there are different users we can create in the MySQL database, like database, connect to database is there. So if someone here, whatever at present we have username, that is only root. So if you go here and plus, we can create one more thing. It's like a new connection, new root, new database. So okay, cancel. Select user. As we have only one user, so it's getting only one. So if we have many connections, then we'll get different users, right? So select user, so it will give some information and it will store into this B user. Then he created insert into contacts audit. So he created one table, that is contacts audit, and it contains 3 columns: contact ID, created date, created by, and values, new dot contact ID, and state, and B user. So what it will do, so whenever he is inserting some data like in the contacts table, so whenever we are inserting some data, then it will if already 10 rows are there, if we are inserting some data, then it will uh, create a contact ID as 11, right? Because it is auto increment. If we have 10 data and we have inserted one more row, then the contact ID will be 11. Understood? Auto
Yes,
increment.
ma'am.
Yeah, if we have 10 rows in the table and we have inserted one more row, then auto increment, what it will do? The ID, it will give it as 11, right? So
Yes, ma'am.
whenever we have inserted some data, it will give that ID number. And sysdate. Sysdate is nothing but the system date. Select. Sysdate. So this one, the date and time, and the B user. So from which connection it happened. So it is nothing but like audit. So what he's trying to print is like whatever the new information is inserted, that IDs and the system date. So when it got inserted and from which connection it got inserted. So it's like also audit. So you understood now? And when it is after inserting some table, whatever the rows are recorded, okay, whatever the rows are inserted and at what time it is inserted and who done by that, who is done. So this kind of information is stored into this contacts audit table. Okay. And this trigger will invoke after inserting some data. Understood?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, how to delete a trigger table? Is it the same drop command?
Yes, drop command. So wait, let me show triggers. What is the syntax for that? Okay, show triggers only and drop trigger. So we have created one trigger, right? The trigger name is employee update and event. Event is update. Whenever the update is happening, then it will invoke and the table name. So on which table we have created this trigger? Employees table and the statement begin insert into trigger audit table and the timing before. So when it will, the trigger will invoke before updating some data, we need that previous data, right? So that's why it's giving before. Okay, so created it when we created and the SQL mode and the definer. So like this. So you wanted to see the trigger here. So how to see that? So I have activated this employee database, and then if we see here department, there are 4 tables are there and views, store procedures, functions. So for which table we have created a trigger?
Employee.
Employees. So if you expand this, then if you see here columns, indexes, foreign keys and triggers. So this one. For this one, employees trigger. So no, this is the database. Advanced Java. In that employees table, in that triggers, and the trigger name is employee update. Okay. Okay. So shall we create one more trigger?
Ma'am, create multiple trigger in one table.
Multiple?
Like after and before trigger in one table.
Yeah, we can create multiple triggers for one table. But in the trigger, we should not create like, so if you see this trigger syntax, after you can pick any either after or before, or you can pick either insert or update or delete. You should not declare after insert, after update, after delete. So you should not create 3. You have to give either after or before, or either insert or update or delete. That's it. But you can create multiple triggers on the table. Okay. So you can create a trigger like Okay, before insert on employees table. Okay, before delete. Or before update or after update, anything you can use. You can create how many triggers you want, but you should not create all these in one trigger. Like you should not give this before delete, after what is this, after update, like that. You have to give only one operator, either before delete or after delete or after update or before update. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And one more thing you have to remember is if you see here, I'm inserting the data, whatever the previous data is there in the employees table, I'm inserting here. So I have in this table I have created, and the employee ID, first name, last name, email, salary I have given, and in the values I have given old. Why I have given this? Because I
Because we
want the
are
old version.
doing before update here.
Previous value.
Yeah, I want the previous value. That's why I have given. If I give here new value, then it will insert a new value. Okay. So I'm inserting the new value there, and I'm also inserting the new value here. So there is no purpose, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So if both the tables have the new values, then there is no purpose. If the old table is inserting some new data, and I wanted to know the old version also, so that's why I have given old here. Okay.
And when we are doing after update, at that time we have to give their new dot employee ID.
After update, so if you wanted to do the after update here, you can make it after update. Okay. So after update, you wanted to know who done that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So after update you have given here, and after update you wanted to know the information. What kind of information you wanted to know after update? So someone who did that update. Okay, on which column, like on which row the update got happened. So you wanted to know those kind of information, then you have to create a trigger for after update also. But here what we created before update, right? Before update something, I wanted to fetch the information into this table. So this trigger will invoke when it will invoke before updation is happening. If I give it here after update, then when trigger will invoke after updation is happening on that row, then it will invoke. You understood?
I'm asking when we are creating after update, what we have to write there in insert into line.
Okay, so if you do here after a update, like you have some purpose, right? Okay, after update I wanted to know this kind of information, or before update I wanted to know the old data, like that, right?
But ma'am, after update, the new data is already there. We can fetch it from select star from table name.
Yeah, that's why what he did here, if you see here, after update, after insert is there, and after delete is there. Same like after delete or after insert also, he just got the information like what is the contact ID. So on what, which deleted data. So if you see here, after delete, so this example is for after delete, and then contact ID. So which one is deleted, and when it is deleted, and who it is deleted. So I think you understood now. So when it is deleted and who is deleted and what it is deleted. So we wanted to know that kind of information too. So it is like audit. So that's why we are using triggers. So if you see here, this employees table, there are different columns are there. So if you wanted to change this email, like the data in this email table, so what we do here, it's like updation, right? So before update
Yes.
or we use after update. So if you wanted to know the before update, then what will we do? Before update means the previous data is there. So maybe we need that previous information. So we will fetch the previous information. So what after update? After update, some changes will happen, right? So who did that changes and when did, at what time that those changes happen. So if you create after update table, and will invoke the trigger. So based on the requirement, we use this. Okay, you understood now?
Yes, ma'am.
And what else? Okay, I will do one more example. Okay, so salary column is there here. So shall we update this salary column?
Yes, ma'am.
Select star. Okay, select salary and distinct salary I want. Distinct salary from employees ordered by salary ascending. So the minimum salary is 2,200, right? The minimum salary is 2,200. So okay, so whoever the people having the less salary, then I wanted to increase 500 to them. Okay, so here 2,200 is there. So I wanted to increment 500 to them. Then it will become 2,700.
700.
So I wanted to create a trigger who is less than 5,000 salary. So who are having 5,000 less than salary. So to those people, I wanted to increment 500 to all the people. Okay, so I will create a trigger for that. So create trigger. Salary updation. Before update. Why I have given before update? Anybody try that?
So previous data.
Huh?
Previous data.
Okay. So before update is nothing but first it will check. So before updation is happening, any updation is happening, first it will check that anybody who is having less than 5,000. So if you want to update something like update, we write this query, right? Update query. So before executing that update query, it will invoke, this trigger will invoke. So that's why we are creating before update on employees for each row begin, right? Begin. So what we have to do? If okay, new dot salary less than 5,000, then set new dot salary is equals to salary plus 500. Okay, and if yeah, create trigger, I have to give here delimiter before doing this. Execute. So trigger is created on employees table, that is before update. Okay, now select star from employees. So if you see here, there are many people who are having less than 5,000, and I want them, if the salary is less than 5,000, then set new dot salary is equals to salary plus 500. So 500 will be added, and it should be done before update. So whenever we are writing an update query, so before it is executing, the trigger will invoke and it should add 500 to the person who are having less than 5,000. So I need to write the update query. Update employees set salary is equals to, you can take okay 2,900, where employee ID is equals to 130. Unknown column salary. What is the name here? Update employees set salary. $2,900, where employee ID is equals to 130. Unknown column salary in field list. Which field list? For each row, if new dot salary less than 5,000, then new dot salary is equals to salary. We have given same, right?
Yes, ma'am. The syntax is right, I think.
Then why it's giving salary in field list is wrong, unknown. Employees is there. Okay, we'll try this. What executed? Control C and what is the difference between these two?
Nothing.
There is nothing different, but still it's showing that error.
Ma'am, are you inserting the same value? The salary is 2900.
No, I'm not inserting the same value, but still I'm inserting the same value it should insert. Okay, so we have updated something set salary is equals to 10,000 where employee ID is equals to 104. And I have created a trigger like if new dot salary less than 5,000, then set new dot salary is equals to salary plus 500. So if I go to this 104, it will set as 1,000.
Try 2900 where employee ID is 104.
Set salary is equals to okay. Okay, select start from employees and what we are doing in this trigger, on which table we have created trigger, create trigger and the trigger name before update or employees for each row. Begin if new dot salary. The salary spelling is also same, less than 5,000. Then set new dot salary is equal to salary plus 500. Okay, maybe it's old dot salary we have to give or what? I think so. Okay, so let me drop this. I will give it this a name as salary update 1 and I will execute this. And now I'm trying to execute this unknown column salary in field list again. trigger salary update. So now I will execute this. So it is executed right now.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so for which where employee ID is equals to 130. Set salary is equals to 2,900. But 2,900 is less than 5,000. So to that 130 employee, it became 3,300. So what is the previous value? Previous value is
28.
2,800. It is added 500 to that people. So why we got that error? Because I haven't given old or new here. I just given salary only. So that's why it didn't identify what is the salary is. So after I have given old, after I have added old also, it still give the error. Why? Because I haven't dropped the before salary update. So in that trigger, there is an error. So I have created a new trigger like salary update one. But when I execute this update query, but still two triggers are there, then salary update and also salary update one. So that's why it still gives some error. So before doing that, before update two times, then it will create some problems. So we have to create before update only once, or whatever the triggers you are going to create. If you create before update or and also another before update, then it will create some problem. Okay.
Ma'am, the trigger will be invoked only if the change will be made on the salary column or in any column on employees table.
Yeah, but here we have written only for the salary column. So if something is changing in the salary column, then only it will update. But in the previous trigger, like in the previous trigger, we have created ID, first name, last name, salary. And that means we have created new table and we are inserting all the old employees. So whatever the row, like whatever the row is updating, then it will store the previous data, right?
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
but here I have mentioned only the salary. If new dot salary less than 5,000, then set new dot salary is equals to 500 plus. So I have mentioned only salary. So if there is any modifications or deletions or updations happening, so we have given here only before update. So if any updations are going to happen, then only it will create this trigger and it will add 500 to the salary. Okay. So you do refer this trigger document and I will add some more examples like after insert is there here. So before insert, before update, before delete. So I also add these programs to it. So you people can understand easily how to do all these things. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
It is not much difficult. It is easy. Okay. Anyone have doubts?
Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Okay. So what about joints? Anyone seen that assignments? I have given only 8 questions, I guess. Those are easy if you try. So you people try it on weekend. On Monday, if you have any doubts on those joints too, we will discuss.
Okay, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, guys. See you on Monday.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.